But Brent is probably one of the top serial entrepreneurs in Europe. You started lastminute.com in the beginning of the internet bubble, around 98, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And sold it for a little money.
Yep.
Successfully. And then started another company, mydeco.
Yep, a couple. And made.com.
And made.com. And you're also doing early stage investing with pro-founders.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of the background on Brent. And Dennis, of course, one of the founders originally of Dodgeball, sold to Google. And then you recycled your idea and made Foursquare.
Yeah, we tried again.
Similar.
Yeah.
It's interesting because one of the things that Brent has said, I read an article by you, is that European entrepreneurs should not copy. I should introduce Loic Meur for the home audience.
Oh, right, we're talking, no, that's right, I'm confused now. We're talking to your audience now.
As well as this audience.
That's
here.
great, you know.
So Loic organizes LeWeb. How many years have you done this?
6 years, 7 editions. We had 2 the first year, so 6 years.
And just a few hundred people at first, and then it grew, and it grew, and it grew.
200 people at first, but 15 countries with the same spirit of everything in English, which in Paris, you know, was new.
Frowned upon. That's why it's snowing, by the way. God's punishing you.
It's only for that reason.
Yeah.
Right.
God is French.
Yes, and we did 250, 500, 700, 1,300, 1,800, 23, and so it kept, and 3,000 this year.
And
only word of mouth, no advertising. It's just you talking about it and hopefully not being too unhappy.
When we heard that we didn't have any guests, I said, I will interview you, Loic, because people probably don't know your story. And he said, no, it's my conference, you can't interview me. So we will never know the true story behind Loic. But Seismic is actually a great success, and I love Seismic. So I'm going to give you
Thank you, Leo. We can talk a little bit, but you know,
this is your conference. I understand.
This is about, honestly, this is really about me showcasing friends and you know, sharing. So I don't want too much,
Well, Brent, you just flew in from England, right?
Trained.
Train? Through the Channel?
Train jet, yeah.
Wow. Was there snow in the Channel? No.
It was slow.
Yeah. So you wrote an article saying that European entrepreneurs should not start companies, should not copy American companies. And Loic told me there's more than a few copies of Foursquare right now in Europe.
Yeah, really all over the world. You see people that are coming up with like Foursquare clones or knockoffs.
Get closer.
Closer?
So all much better.
Okay. No, I mean we see it kind of all over the world, and some of it, you know, so we've been slow to translate and been slow to, you know, to internationalize some of the product. But you know, as we get there, I think like, you know, we'll be able to hold our own.
But you even copied yourself in a way. I mean, you did Dodgeball, and Foursquare is an iteration on Dodgeball, isn't it?
It's weird though, because the story is weird. As we were saying before, like, you know, we didn't start off to like make this company. It was, you know, Dodgeball was the way that all of our friends coordinated in New York and San Francisco and like 10 other cities in the U.S. And when it was turned off by Google, it's like shit. Now what are we gonna do? Like we should just build another one because this is what we use. It's like, you know, that was the tool that we used to socialize. And so we started that, and we said if we're gonna build it, we should, you know, Naveen, let's throw Naveen's tips in to do stuff. And I was like, let's try to do some game mechanics on top of it and see what just comes out of it.
Right. Is that the difference, Brent? Is that Dennis was doing something organic that fit his own needs, as opposed to saying, well, what's successful out there?
Yeah. The trouble with, copying businesses can be a great business model, and we know that particularly in some markets where there's a real huge time arbitrage, like Germany, you know, it takes these guys, for example, a long time to get to Germany. So you can legitimately copy a business in Germany and sell out to your US competitor. But that doesn't mean Europe's going to get another wave of billion-dollar companies, because it's derivative. And my view is passionate entrepreneurs start businesses because they have a passion about solving a problem, not because they're just trying to make a quick buck.
Right. And as a result, they get a better product.
As a result, they get a better, and they have the opportunity to go global. And this is the problem, is that if you're just a copycat, you can't go to America because guess what? There's Facebook or YouTube or Foursquare, you know, dominating that market. So, but the problem, it's a deeper one. It's to do with a couple of things. It's to do with attitudes to failure in Europe, which has been talked about a lot, so I'm not going to hackney that one anymore. And I think it's also, the other problem we've got in Europe is scale. So the other point, my big argument, which I think we should all campaign for, is how can we create a real European market for internet companies? There are very few that are pan-European.
Is that an issue of national boundaries, of size? What are the difficulties?
It's an issue of, I mean, at its most basic level, language, but actually much more than that.
Yeah.
It's protectionism. It is in the country we are in, France, for example. You know, lastminute.com would not have succeeded in France had it not bought businesses, because there are all sorts of barriers, like you have to have your local travel agency license. You know, the HR, so the employment law is so blindingly complex that you need researchers on it to deal with it and not get yourself in prison. So it's a way of, each of these countries is creating huge barriers, and they could be leveled, and my view is digital should be the test case.
Yes.
You know, you won't do it for all companies, but why not somebody go to the EU and say, let's try it for digital business. Let's relax the law a bit. Let's make them expand across Europe so that we can have more billion-dollar companies, and you're not just selling out, the UK one just sells out, and then the French one, and then the German one, and they each sell out separately, and everyone says hooray. It's not hooray.
Loic, you have a unique perspective because you are European, but did you move your country to America, or did you found it in America?
I created a few startups here, including LeWeb, which you can say is a startup.
Yeah,
This is a French company.
Right.
So when people talk to me about successful international, visible from the outside French startup, I say, yeah, LeWeb is one.
Right.
It's a small company.
Right.
And then I moved, 3 years ago, I launched this mic in San Francisco.
And why?
So,
why not launch it here?
well, you can succeed in Europe. You know, Brent is a proof. Marc Simoncini, who's going to show up tomorrow, by the way.
Oh, good.
Who created Mythic. He was supposed to be with Leo.
He's here. He's like not so far.
He's like
It's mythical from Meeting.
he sent me a picture of his car surrounded by other cars and said, look, I cannot, like, anyway. So there are a lot of success. You can succeed in Europe. I just thought that I would increase my chances by going there. And I have to say, so for example, if you want to partner with Google or you want to partner with Twitter, they're a block away. Or they're half an hour away, right? Here, if you want to partner with them, generally you don't have the same management. Like you don't talk to Marisa, for example. Not that I don't like my Google friends in Europe, but you see what I mean. It takes a little longer. Same with funding. There's a new generation now of Brent and Jacques-Antoine Grandjean that you'll meet tomorrow, and Xavier Niel. They all have like 20 million funds now. This is very new for Europe. So they made it, and now they start investing in European entrepreneurs. So I think it's changing, but it's the same with funding. It goes faster in the US. And also the other factor which I think makes a big difference is when you start in the US, and I shouldn't say in the US, I should probably say San Francisco, but then it started in New York. So it's that everybody is there, and you can address a market with a lot of early adopters and those 300 million people, whereas here you have 20 plus languages, and you need to fly. You can't go 15 minutes away. So it's a lot more complicated if you want to address the same size of market. So by the time you win France, this is Geraldine. By the time they made a joke with Geraldine.
She does all the work.
She does all the work. We should have Geraldine on stage.
Yeah.
And so by the time let's say you've succeeded in Germany, or by the time you succeeded in Madrid or in Paris, and so on and so forth, you have someone in the US who's made something bigger. And so, for example, Dailymotion is a successful French video service.
Right, but YouTube.
So they started before YouTube.
Right.
If you talk to the founder, Benjamin Bechbaum, he would tell you, I started before YouTube.
Right.
But he got less funding, he got less traction, he got, and so on. So it's not impossible, it's just more difficult. So moving myself there was I'm happy there, it's good.
You said an interesting thing. I think there is also a value of being in an area where everybody's doing the same thing and you can communicate with each other. Do you find that, Dennis, in New York?
Well, I was going to say, like, there's, the U.S. version of this is the question that we get all the time. It's like, why didn't you start your company in San Francisco?
Right.
It's like, well, because we live in New York.
Right.
And people don't think of starting tech companies in New York because, there's all these other huge industries. There's, finance and fashion and media. But it made sense for us, I honestly think, like, our products are are better because, like, New York is a very tough city to design for, with all the density of people and places and just stuff going on. Like, especially for the stuff that we're doing, it's just, it's a hard problem to solve. But like there's like a big resurgence in the startup scene going on in New York, and there's like we share office space with 2 other companies, and 5 blocks south of us is another building with 10 other startups in it, and there's all these communities popping up in Dumbo and Midtown that are incubators that are housing a lot of these startups.
And you talk with each other, and I mean, I think about my friend Kevin Rose, who says that Facebook and Twitter and Dig all are talking with each other about scaling issues, for instance, and trading information and trading engineers.
Yeah, well, we're lucky. Like we're built off of MongoDB, the database, and those guys are in New York, and when we need some help with them, like they come and hang out at our office for a little bit, and we just opened a San Francisco office that is a couple blocks away from the Twitter guys. Like we're friendly with them. Like we worked at Google at the same time that they were there, and like we're just friends with all these guys from conferences and everything anyway, and so it just makes sense to be in proximity to a lot of these folks.
It's probably the secret to the success of a conference like this is it's a chance to bring people from 60 countries together to have that kind of. But is it a disadvantage not to have that year-round, Brent? Is that part of the problem? Is not merely government regulation, but just the lack of communication?
I think the communication thing is getting a lot better. So what we're seeing in Europe, I don't know whether people have talked about this a lot yet, but obviously we've got the Moscow Tech Hub. So, a lot of people from Silicon Valley came over to Moscow to look at doing one. And in the UK, I don't know whether people talk much about East London Tech City, which is the brand name that the government are pushing for. And, at the launch of that, we had the Prime Minister and the Mayor of London really trying to push this idea that the Olympic Village will become an ecosystem. So I think ecosystems are getting a lot better. And just one other thing for European entrepreneurs, I have this innate hubristic bias to people who can make it across Europe. If you can make it, it's no longer if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. If you can make it across Europe, dealing with that sort of complexity, in my humble opinion, you are a very talented manager, and you haven't had that natural scale advantage that the Americans have. Therefore, the world should be your oyster. Yeah. So the next challenge is, let's make it across Europe, but let's get a bridge quickly into India and China so that the European companies hit India and China before the Americans.
I'm amazed when, earlier again, like I didn't see too much press because I was kind of busy here, but I had 2 interviews during lunch, and it's always the same questions, right? It's like, so people are not entrepreneurial in Europe.
Right.
And I was like, look behind me, it was that room when you had lunch. Right. I was like, you think they're not entrepreneurial? Like this room? Like you all want to create stuff right now, and you don't care about risk, and so that's not the
I went to the startup room. It felt just like the startup room in the States would have felt, with the same kind of an energy and enthusiasm. And have you been over there, Dennis? Have you looked at what these?
No, I saw it on the map. I haven't been there yet.
Yeah, go over and look at it.
Well, this conference feels a lot like South by Southwest to me. Like which is where all the the social tech nerds in the U.S. flock to. Like I don't know if people from Europe go to, or in large numbers go to South by Southwest, but that's like nerd spring break. Everyone goes there every year, and people show off what they've been working on, and like all the people that all the people that we've met that are running these companies now, like we met them 5 years ago when they were, either had other companies or were in school or working for other gigs, and that's just how we networked. And it feels, that environment feels, very familiar.
I think you have to have a culture that rewards it, it encourages it. You have to be surrounded by people who are doing it, that inspires you to do it. You have to have an educational system that supports it. Mm-hmm. I think there's a difference in the European educational system from the U.S. educational system in the sense that perhaps more innovation is supported in the U.S. Brent, would you say that's the case? Is that one of the issues?
More innovation being supported. I mean, I think in European education, actually, there's been lots of debates about whether we should teach entrepreneurship more in the system and whatever. And personally, I studied French and German literature, which is obviously very helpful when I'm navigating the snow here.
I was a Chinese major, so there you go.
But I think, in the UK, I think they're very good at teaching you to think and synthesize and analysis. And then it's up to you whether you take the risk. So, and I think what's happening is the risk arbitrage now of being an entrepreneur is less than it was, because the alternatives of being a banker and a consultant, which was my first job, consultancy, is much less attractive than it was. Right. So I think we're getting people are much more pro-entrepreneurship in Europe, but Mark Simoncini, who I watched a video of Mark the other day, he quotes this stat about France in the video, saying that of the top 50 most respected people in France, not one is an entrepreneur.
Mostly intellectuals.
But I think it starts at school. Yeah, well, yeah, I think it starts at school. Well, the politicians don't care about entrepreneurship much. They say they care, but they don't really care. Or maybe it's just me thinking this way these days. But anyway.
I think they're starting to care. I mean, I think this is. You see what's happening in England. There's definitely.
I think it is the rhetoric of governments right now is phenomenal. I mean, the amount of words. Somebody should do the analysis of how many times they mention the word entrepreneur, versus what they did 5 years ago.
It may be pure rhetoric.
And beyond the rhetoric now, I think they're actually starting to move to actions as well.
What about money? Is that a similar situation? Dennis, when you went to raise money, did you do the Sand Hill Road march? What did you do?
The first time around, it was just, it was like we had a tin cup that we were shaking. Like we were going around to anyone that we knew. This is for our Series A, just looking for someone that was, would believe in the stuff that we were building, just because we were so passionate about it. The Series B was much easier because we were able to show that we had traction. People were able to see the business model. Like people were getting very excited about us. But that Series A is always tough.
Somebody told me that they actually, you watch the check-ins as people go down Sand Hill Road, and you could see.
Oh yeah.
And you can see where people are going. But you can also see what the interest is, because if all of a sudden, Greylock is starting to check in on Foursquare, oh, this is interesting.
Well, you can also tell the people that are really excited about what you're doing, because you can meet these investors.
They start using it.
Well, no, you can meet their investors, and we can go in the stats and be like, are they using it, or are they just like full of hot air?
Right.
So.
That's right. Yeah.
But
So is it different here?
We have 1,800 people watching online right now.
Oh, that's excellent. On my or yours?
I don't.
Oh, you know what? I think we may be refeeding yours, so who knows?
Okay. That's on ustream.tv/LeWeb.
That's yours.
Okay.
So we probably have a similar number on mine. So
really?
It's even more.
That's cool.
Don't be.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you,
Don't be afeared. Is it different here, Brent?
Well, so what's happening with funding here is obviously, as Loic said, there is now this absolute trend, which is great, of second-generation entrepreneurs and third-generation recycling.
Like you. And
like
Mark.
us and Michael Birch, who helped fund our fund, Pro Founders. But you're seeing, and in France, there's a whole lot, and a lot of these are just doing, some of them have an approach, the Ron Conway approach, I'll call it, to spread very widely, to do the startup. So I think we're starting to see that gap, the very early stage, come closer to being filled, although Pro Founders has seen 1,000 business plans and has done 6 deals. So it's still tough. But it is really the later stage, which is the real issue, and this is why governments are trying to get involved, because the problem is venture capital is anyway a terrible asset class. It's one of the worst performing asset class, obviously. In Europe, it's even worse than in the US, and that's just economic. So what we need is, quite honestly, is just more Skypes and more mega hit-it-out-the-ballpark successes, which goes back to me, it's not just more startups, it's more startups being bigger, more successful, going faster, which is why we need to get them to internationalize faster and think bigger, quicker. And then the last thing is selling out. So this is the other big debate, is when do you sell out? And I think it'll be fascinating to watch the Groupon saying no to a $6 billion deal, but I think many commentators have said, how many Europeans would have said no to that?
But see, Leo, that's a big problem. Tomorrow we have a how to get acquired panel, which we've never done here, at LeWeb. And I have 2 corp devs. We have Fritz Sandman from Microsoft, and we have Google, Henshi, and so Anil. And that's it. But what I should tell you is that there is a story behind the that's it. I invited more. And I won't disclose any names because I don't want to. But I had a lot of people telling me, we're just not interested in Europe. Meaning we don't want to acquire companies in Europe. We wouldn't care. So thanks, but no thanks. So see, so then what happens is the VCs invest less.
Without an exit, there's no payoff.
And the angels... There are less angels. So the entrepreneurs, you see what I mean? They are kind of stuck. So it's the whole chain which is slower.
The other thing that's interesting now is the IPO market. So what's happening now is obviously, some in Europe do manage Playfish, et cetera, to sell out. But I think entrepreneurs don't see that IPO track very much anymore, which is another problem, because obviously the way we at lastminute.com were able to expand was using our paper currency to buy companies across Europe. So I think that's another worry for me, is how will this next generation be able to do that?
Right. Dennis, do you spend any time looking at an exit at this point? It's your...
I don't know. Our Series B adventure was, like a really interesting learning process. Like it took a long time. There was all this press fury around it, and ultimately it was kind of distracting for the company. And so, we try not to get as distracted by those things now. But, you read about these things in the paper. People speculate about us all the time, and every time we get on stage, people ask us about them. But like we're just focused on building the stuff we want to do. One thing I did want to say, as to what you were saying about second-time entrepreneurs, like our Series A was 2 firms, Union Square and O'Reilly, and we had about 10 angels, and a lot of them were people that had done startups before. It was Jack from Twitter and Kevin Rose and Josh Schachter from Delicious, and New York is getting that same thing. Like, those aren't New York entrepreneurs, but like New York is getting that same thing now, where there's second-generation entrepreneurs, and they want to go and help out other folks. Like I've invested in a couple things. Like you've got your Chris Dixons and your Zach Kleins and all these people that are really contributing back to the ecosystem, and that's what makes it work, because it's other people see that they can do the same stuff that we're doing, and there's some capital there to help support it as well.
And mentoring, not just capital.
Yeah, it's just like that's the scene. Like I was talking about, like I know a lot of people that are in this industry just from going to South by Southwest for many years, and like that community is reproducing itself in New York. Like all these people that we've been friends with for years, like those are all the kids that are doing startups. And there's like a great support network that didn't exist when we were doing Dodgeball. It really didn't even exist like 2 years ago. And so now it's just. It could be because we're just in the thick of it right now, but there's a lot of opportunity. It's much easier for people to get started because there's a roadmap of how to do it. Right.
Is that just a question of maturity, Brent? Maybe it's just we've been doing it longer?
Yeah, I think absolutely, and that's the other major point. You're absolutely right. Is that I don't know if the US is still 3 years ahead. I always used to say 3 years. I think that's compressed. I don't think it's 3 years anymore. But it does mean that it's also, if you have the same idea in the US as Loic said about YouTube or whatever, it's that it just happens a lot quicker, and therefore there's more money, and you get the exits before the bubble bursts, and all those things.
Do we want to keep people here forever because it's snowing?
We can keep going.
I think they might resent that.
We can keep going. We have 4,000 people, 2,000 each, right?
They're all watching
on our chat. So I think we should take if they want to leave again.
We can take questions here. We could also take Twitter questions, I guess. Do you want to follow?
Yeah, let's do that, Leo. You're the boss. Do you want to take some questions from the room?
Sure.
I can drive Twitter for you if you like.
Sure. And if you're watching at home, you can ask a question and just use the hashtag LeWeb. Is that good? Or LeWeb 2010? What would you like to do?
Well, there's so much. We're top trending topic on Twitter.
Well, you want to keep that going, don't you?
Yes. But if you ask just hash LeWeb, I don't think we're going to be able to follow. So let's do Leo Panel. Hash Leo Panel.
Okay.
So
hash
I'll
Leo
tweet that.
See if we can make that trend. And if there are questions from the floor, we have some.
So yeah, please, if you could come here. Oh, we have actually two ladies who are going to help you. So raise your hand if there is no question yet.
She said, no,
please
I don't
raise your hand if you have a question. No question.
There's one in the back here.
Here we go. Hello. Ici là, juste là. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone. My name is Ismail Shaib. I'm from Algeria. And I'm a young entrepreneur, and my question, I was wondering, what's the single best advice for a young entrepreneur like me, for you guys can give me and give all the other young entrepreneurs here in this room? Thank you.
It's a great question. You want to start with that?
Like, it's super cheesy. Like it's kind of like if you say you want to grow up and be a pro athlete, and your parents are like, you can do whatever you want to do, But it's I went through the first couple years of my career with people telling me like, oh, that thing that you keep talking about, that's a stupid idea. And the only way that we're able to prove that it worked was we actually learned how to code out of a book, build it to the point where you think it works, keep revising it, and just make things happen on your own, and don't let people tell you that you can't do them.
Brent, do you have any?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, again, super cheesy, but it's really hard. Starting up your own company is hard. It's the dream when it works, but even then, it's relentless. So to me, it's passion. You've got to absolutely love what you're doing, because that's the only way to burst through all the problems you're going to have. You're going to have problems. It's going to be really hard. You're going to have to jump through walls. And the way to overcome them is make sure that you love what you're doing. And the other thing I say to people is just, you need to be able to explain it to someone. You need to be able to sell it. Make sure your friends are the customers, their friends are the customers, and when you get through that as well, you've got something that people want.
quality and passion, listening to the feedback. That's like I screwed up really bad at LeWeb like a few times, and some people who have seen that, know that. And one year, some people blogged that the conference was dead.
Yep,
I
remember that.
You remember that? And it's been tough. Like for a week, right? So much feedback. Like I invited politicians, 3 of them.
Big mistake.
Shimon Peres was amazing. Well, just as you said, big mistake. It was absolutely amazing. You could hear a pin drop in the room. And the mistake was political candidates. And because the room was, the mistake was to not tell the room that I would do that. Because then you could have, we would have seen what, at least I would have warned people. I thought it was a good idea. Hey, cool, I have all those friends coming from worldwide. If there's a campaign here, why don't we hear about them? Big mistake. For 10 days, I was like under this table, like this. And anyway, so the advice to answer the question is if you listen to this feedback and answer every single piece of negative feedback you can, which I try to do. I have this huge blog post, which is like 4 pages long, where I said, yes, I screwed up on those 200 things, and I'm going to fix them. I think it's a very good approach.
You came back very strong the next year, too.
Well, that's another lesson well, first I think that waiting for a week, you'd let the dust settle a little bit. If you answer immediately, it wasn't, Right. So I waited for a week, and people were not tweeting at that time, blogging. You're going to make it worse if you wait. And I actually kept, I kept waiting, and because I wanted to answer the whole thing. And there is a point after a week where you kind of know what are people, complaining about. And then I answered every single of them as honestly as I could. If I screwed up, I screwed up. And I said, yes, I screwed up. Here's how. And people blogged, LeWeb is dead. Dead. Never going to happen again. And we grew 50, 70% the next year, which is crazy. But yeah, it's a good lesson. So that's my advice: is negative feedback, answer it, pay attention, read it, and generally. Trust is coming from that. I think there is trust here. You can feel people, want to come to the web. They don't even know what program we will put. They know we find people like Dennis who come back twice, in the same afternoon. And we have tons of questions from the internet. Do you want those? I'm actually amazed.
Look, can I just pick up on your point? I think what's also interesting about that point is actually controversy.
Yep.
With hindsight. Controversy is great. Lastminute.com became a debate over whether it was this idiot idea and we massively overvalued whether it was a good idea. Foursquare has a privacy debate is at the heart of that, but it's great that you're part of the debate. It doesn't matter whether people are saying you're nuts or not.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So how does the UK relate to Europe for startups? Is the country more aligned to the US? That's from @CramRebrab. Did you get that?
Attitude
My accent. Yeah, I know.
What?
How does the UK relate to Europe for startups? Is the country more aligned? Is UK more like US? Is UK Europe, basically?
Yeah, I mean, UK percentage-wise, we're further away from socialism than a lot of the rest of Europe.
Someone is tweeting this, right? Brent Hoberman just said UK is further away from communism.
Yeah, so if you're an entrepreneur, I recommend starting in London versus Paris or Berlin.
But Russia wouldn't be so bad, and they're even closer, right?
And Russia is not socialist anymore.
Not anymore. Sometimes being aggressively capitalist isn't such a bad thing either. Yeah.
Some other issues. But yeah, I mean, certainly the UK is the bridge point, for many American companies as well. And culturally, there are probably more startups there. I think the problem the UK has, which is not aligned to America, is still this thing of attitude to failure. So that's where the change needs to happen. Failure is definitely no badge of honor.
Right.
So Sylvain is asking if it's snowing in Paris at LeWeb. I don't think it's snowing anymore. By the way, it's melting very fast as well because the streets are warm. So we should be fine. And tomorrow the weather, I'm updating you on the weather now. We are tour operator, weather, everything. It's clear sky. That's the weather.
We'll get you a green screen. You can do the.
Well, I didn't change that, and we'll be at the party anyway. I have a question for you, Leo, from Samuel Prosser. What's the best gadget this year, Leo Laporte?
The best gadget?
Gadget for you.
Oh, I don't know. I like this MacBook Air a lot. I think I've become very fond of it very quickly. Yeah. It's light. It does everything. It's superseded the iPad. for me. How about you, Dennis? What do you like? I heard you just got a Nexus 1.
Yeah, I did. I just got a Nexus, and so now I've been doing iPhone in one pocket and Android in the other pocket, and I know I'm glued to those things all the time. So that's a very easy, predictable answer. But
did Foursquare start with an iPhone app? That was the first app, right?
Yeah, it's funny. We started just with the iPhone, and then Naveen and I could have built the Android app, or we could have focused on the API, but not both. And we said, let's do the API and cross our fingers that we get all the other things that we want. And then we made the API, and people just started building BlackBerry apps.
That was the right choice, wasn't it?
At that time,
it might have been harder today, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, probably, just because the marketplace is a little bit different.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was. You didn't see a lot of Android phones out in the wild then. People weren't switching from iPhone over. Right. But yeah, we got really lucky with the developer community. They're fantastic.
Whose Galaxy S Tab is that? Is that yours, Brent?
That's mine.
I'll take it.
Yeah, it's mine now.
That's another, by the way.
That?
Yeah, I love it. And I saw your Angry Bird on that. Yeah, it's wonderful to play.
It's Orange. I have to thank them then, if you give me the opportunity. Orange Business Service that lent that to me during LeWeb.
Yeah.
I have to admit that I've had it for 4 to 5 days. It's amazing.
It's surprising.
It's fast. It's great.
Yeah.
And it's small. I like the factor. I was in the metro. You can have it in, well, not that pocket, but in your coat. No problem. Like the iPad, better for the weekend, right?
Yeah. Well, Steve Jobs said that iPad was was too small, but I think it's actually not too small.
I think it's better. In terms of size, at least.
Can I pick up on a previous point that we've been talking about, is UK versus Europe. And I think the other one, and it'd be interesting to see if Loic and Dennis have views on this, but is the attitude of, one, government procurement from startups. So in the US, obviously, there's been legislation, I believe, to say government needs to procure more from startups. In the UK, it's been set as a goal. It's not actually mandatory. In France, there's the Pacte Meur, which has worked only so well. And examples are with my, sorry, Loic obviously doesn't want to answer that question. So there's procurement from governments, and there's also procurement from large corporates, and startups working with large corporates, I mean. So one example, we've got, my tiny mydeco.com, we've done a deal with Dassault Systems, and we're demoing it here today, and it's a great example of a big corporate working with a small startup to sort of demonstrate cutting-edge 3D. But that's very hard to work with corporates here, because corporates also don't like to take the risk of working with startups, whereas in the US, I imagine it's a lot easier.
Yeah. Well, I mean, wouldn't big companies supporting startups? Or yeah, I think so. It's like we're in a fortunate position because we're still a small company, but I think we're relatively hot. So we've been able to have conversations with larger companies. And they're very excited to talk to us.
Yeah, they want the brand kudos. So you're on a different thing of before you got the brand kudos.
Yeah,
it's
I
much
mean,
harder.
like we're 5 million users, and Twitter is like 150, 200, and then Facebook's considerably larger. But we're still in that it's Twitter, Facebook, and Foursquare statement. It's like, hey, we're smaller,
we'll take it.
Yeah, we're happy to be there.
Yeah. We didn't ask you, Brent. What's your favorite gadget these days?
Oh, God, I love all gadgets. My favorite gadget, I guess maybe when I was at school, was a watch that turned on my lights and radio. That was when I was 13. Seriously,
Did you
infrared.
have a big calculator watch?
Infrared.
My
other favorite gadget.
Watch?
Sorry, my other favorite. Yeah.
I'm intrigued by your watch, too.
Oh, it's this funny. Someone asked me about this. I gave a talk yesterday. It's a watch. It's got a little, you count up the two columns for hours and minutes. It's a Nuka watch.
Yeah, you can't read any time on this.
You
right?
can't read it. I can read it.
Is it in binary? What is it? It's
No, it's neither. It's just kind of like an alternative way of telling time.
Oh dear. Well, it's
the future.
Can you zoom on this thing?
It's a time histogram.
But I'll give you my other favorite gadget that Loic will like, V-Beam, which is a British company, which you can plug it into your USB, and then it will stream anything on your computer onto your TV.
Yeah. That's a hot topic.
Can I go again?
Yeah, you can go again.
I got this GoPro camera. It's a helmet cam.
You got me to buy this.
Oh, that's
thing.
right. That's right.
$400. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's awesome, right? Yeah, you take it skiing. You put it on you can put it on your helmet. It's a helmet cam.
No, wait.
You can put it on your.
Explain. I mean, this is a camera you stick on your head.
I'm saying it's a helmet cam. It's like this waterproof, shockproof camera. You can stick it on anything. Like I've seen people put it on the front of their surfboards, and you can put it on your helmet, and you can put it on your race car and drive around. But you can put it on it has an attachment. You put the camera on the end of a ski pole, and you can film yourself, or you can turn it around and film your buddies with a tripod. It's awesome.
And we both ran the New York Marathon. Dennis and I. And Dennis tweeted about this. I'm gonna run the New York Marathon with a GoPro on my head. I was like, come on. And you treated me baby, right? You treated me back. I said no.
Yeah.
Well, that was when I was like... Can you stream live with it, or is it only...
You can't stream. It actually doesn't even have a display on the back. It's just like this tiny, solid camera.
That's the next step.
Yeah, I mean, you can see like it will stream it to your iPhone and send it back up. So.
Yeah.
You had 2 questions in the room, and then if you want, I'll call Geraldine, and she's going to sit with us for a few minutes.
Okay. Yeah, that's great.
There was one here and one there. Just keep talking. Yes, talk. Just speak.
Okay, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here. Leo and everybody, thank you for being here. I've been a fan since ZDTV and Call for Help was around.
Thank you.
I come from as a recent graduate of the University of Houston. I majored in entrepreneurship, and I came here to see what the scene is and how to jump into the ecosystem. We all followed the rumored acquisition of Groupon by Google last week. And is there something to be worried about? Is this the next bubble, as everybody's asking? Is this the bubble that the same thing happened 10 years ago, and we're getting these crazy valuations, and a lot of these companies are not going to be around and soon?
What do you think, Brent? Are we in a bubble?
I think not in Europe yet. And as for the States and the Groupon one, I mean, it is a phenomenal business model, but there is an issue about barriers. And I think, but what they are doing, it seems very cleverly, is tying up distribution, which is the big barrier. And obviously, they sign exclusivity as well. But in general, I think there is someone the other night was saying that there's a sort of the geek chic thing maybe impacting on the bubble. It's almost like it's so cool just to have put in $10,000 into Foursquare that that people will pump that up at that level for kudos points, less for a financial return. But I don't think that that's general. And I think the big difference between the bubble that I was involved in 2000 is we don't have really a public company bubble, which means that even if it is, it's not going to be very destructive if it bursts.
Right. You don't have the stock market. You don't have the IPOs. We had another.
Yes, there is one, right? By the way, we have a question every minute if you go and stuff.
Oh, boy, we started something, didn't we?
Do you have 4 hours? No. On Twitter, it's crazy if you do Leo panel, as expected.
Well, it's a great opportunity to talk to these guys.
Just introduce yourself again, Matthias. We saw you did an Ignite, right?
Is this on? Yes. Yes, thanks, Loic. Thanks, Leo. I have a question to Dennis. And with the rise of geolocation services, not only Foursquare, Gowalla, Facebook Places, how do you see the future of the printed guidebooks? I mean, my wife works for Lonely Planet. I recently got her on Foursquare. What's the future?
Oh, the printed guidebooks?
The printed ones.
It's I don't know. I think those are horribly inefficient. Like I'll tell you, part of the story behind Foursquare, which I didn't get to talk about before, was, a lot of the tips and to-do stuff came from this trip that I took to Scandinavia. Like I got, I left Google, I left this other company, Area Code. I was in this funk for like a year where I'm like, I've got no other projects. I was feeling really down, and I just went. My roommate lives over in Sweden, and so we went and backpacked around. But before I left, I put up a Flickr picture of the map that we're going to be traveling with, the itinerary. And I asked people just to fill in, hey, what should I do while I'm there? And people gave me all these recommendations. And it wasn't like go to the museum. It was like go to this coffee shop, go in the basement, check out this weird statue. Like, go to this area, go down the alley and look at all the street art. And that was the stuff that directly inspired, the stuff that you see in Foursquare. It wasn't, the Let's Go Europe guide of Stockholm that's the same 20 pages that everyone sees. Like, everyone should have a different 20 pages. And depending on, how cultured and traveled your friends are, maybe you have 10 pages or maybe you have 100 pages. And you should be able to, borrow knowledge from local experts. And that's, the big direction that we're pushing this stuff. I just find it horribly inefficient to travel with those big books. And, part of the stuff that excites me about Foursquare is, this is the first time I've been in Paris in forever, but, every time I go back to Amsterdam, which is every 8 months or so, Foursquare is a better product to use. I'm learning about new things. It's reminding about places I've been to. And, we can see that, we're building things that actually replace some of those existing things.
Can I say quickly, because I was involved in the acquisition of Time Out a bit, and obviously that business was bought not for its printed product, but for the potential of what it can do online. Mm-hmm. And so I think if these brands move quickly, they've still got some brand strength. but they have to turn them into social brands on the web, because as Dennis said, it's much more powerful if you can do that.
Yeah, it's not taking the book and putting the book online or putting it on the iPad. It's like taking the nuggets of content, divvying them up, and finding a distribution channel so that when you're walking down the street, your phone buzzes and it lets you know about the thing that the algorithm knows that you want to do right now. Like that's the thing that we chase.
Historically, though, it's been very difficult for companies like Time Out to make this transition. And I wonder if the difference is, Dennis, it's cultural for Dennis to use Flickr, to use the mashups. It just happens organically, and then from that comes something that he can use. Whereas a Time Out has to take an existing business model and shove it into, and it may not be as organic, it may be more difficult to do. Do they go out and find a few Dennises and say, what would you do with this? Is that how they solve that problem?
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. And I think there was the same thing with Zagat's, actually. There was a very good article recently on how Zagat's is struggling with this paywall.
And they have made the transition, I think, quite well.
Some.
Yeah.
But whether it's as strong as that
maybe
other
not
business.
as the
but I think you have to absolutely disrupt yourself, and it's very hard if everything else is sort of status quo. You just follow the sort of steady decline. So I think actually that's why it's very exciting that Time Out has just had a new injection, a new owner really. Mm-hmm. It's been bought by a private equity company, and I think that's quite exciting because they will be able to take a sort of 3, 4, 5 year view and say, right, we need to disrupt us and cannibalize ourselves, and it's the innovator's dilemma or the incumbent's dilemma.
You're on the board of the Guardian, right?
Yes.
So the Guardian's done a very different job than, say, Rupert Murdoch's holdings in terms of how it's taken to the web. No paywall, very open point of view, and it frankly seems more successful, although we don't really know how successful the paywall is. That seems to me a more organic approach to it, to the transition.
Yeah, I mean, independent experts on the paywall think it's about 10 to 20,000 users a day. Down from the Guardian will be doing several million.
But will it be as profitable?
Yeah, and the argument is that what some people say, and this is not a Guardian view, this is just what people are saying out there, is that it's sort of, they may be getting 4 million, that would be tops of revs, is what people think at the Times, versus probably 10 to 20 on the ad revenue. But it is early days, we'll see, the industry is watching carefully. But I think you're right, that point of being part of the conversation is a very valid one, and it's very hard to do that behind a paywall.
Any more, I think we did all the questions.
Is there another question? Yeah.
There's one more in the back. Oh, there's one there too.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Thank you for everything.
Are you from Siberia? Siberia?
No.
I love that.
I'm from Warsaw, Poland.
See, we have Warsaw, we have Algeria, we have Siberia. That's so cool.
That's great.
Thank you for this. Okay, thank you for every inspiration I get here. I'm in the dating business for 5 years. I'm doing pretty well in Poland. I'm taking lots of business models from Western Europe and also from the States. We're doing good on a local market. We're planning to go to the Western market, which is pretty complicated in Europe, as you said, because we got so many different languages and cultures. Also,
what's your question?
My question is, we're going with the next product, which will be based on a Facebook and will be dating product. And from your answers, I know that I should go straight to the States with that product. The point is, how do you think what's going to happen in the social media and mobile time with the dating, how it looks in a few years' time? Thank you for answer. Dating.
So what happens like with all social media and stuff in the future, you think? Dating. Oh, I don't know. It's like dating stuff is weird because it's like, it has to be a dating app, right? Because we did this with Dodgeball, right? Like with Dodgeball, it was all about your friends, and then we did friends of friends, and we had this thing called the crush list that you could just pick cute users, and you would know when they're nearby. And people are like, I'm not signing up for that dating service. And it's like, no, it's a friend finder service. I mean, people like, dating services sometimes kind of polarizing. I think the ones that are interesting, the ones that are built on top of the Facebook graph. There's a couple, I can't think of them like off the top of my head, but like the data's there.
Zeus, yeah.
Zeus, there's another one that's based out of Palo Alto, I think. And like that graph is like everyone in the world, and it's like relationship status and friends of friends. And if you think about, that's the way that people meet anyway, through friends of friends and common interest. Like that's a fantastic place to build some of that stuff.
Sometimes I think that the idea of being pan-Europe or global is also counterproductive. What about hyperlocal? What about really focusing on a region or a nation or a demographic? I mean, maybe you don't scale to a giant company, and I know maybe that's your focus, but what's wrong with just being a successful company in a smaller market? Is that so horrible?
There's nothing wrong with that. And if you can, I mean, you can dominate Poland and Romania, and there are many players who are creating very good businesses with that. It's just, if you're looking at a big picture of a European, do we want more European giants? Do we want the platforms? I mean, the problem is the platforms are all playing out in the States,
right.
and we don't have platforms here.
And platforms have to be at scale. They can't,
yeah. So those you don't get if you do that, that's all.
That makes
sense.
Sense.
Why would you build something that only works for a limited subset of users? You know, like.
Well, if there's a language issue, for instance.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could start with that with the intention of growing out.
Right.
But, I mean, with Foursquare, we started with Dodgeball, started with 20 cities. With Foursquare, we also had the city model because we didn't know any other way to do it. And then eventually we found a way to make it, work for the rest of the world. And it wasn't until we flipped that switch and we, okay, it's not just 100 cities anymore, it's everywhere, that people are like, okay, now I'm into it. Now it's like a big.
That's really true, yeah. Yeah, that's really true. If I'm not in San Francisco or New York, why would I even use this?
Yeah, it was a huge pain in the ass technically for us to do that, but that was without a doubt the right thing to do.
Yeah, yeah. From the internet.
Yeah, I'm getting yelled at. This is so weird. This is when reality, like the physical world, gets completely crossed into the virtual world.
Welcome to my world. This is how I live.
Yeah, this is your crowd.
I respond. Yeah, it's my crowd, but this is the future of broadcasting, is it's two-way communication.
Yeah, but what's weird is that add to that the time difference.
Yeah.
So 6 p.m.
Well, it's 9 in the morning.
Almost 7 in Paris.
It's noon in the East Coast. It's not so
exactly.
bad.
No. But what's funny is that
they're just waking up.
Yeah. So they yell
cranky.
at us, at me actually. So we have Dane N, who is Dane Miller. Hi, Dane. I'm sure you're watching. Who is saying, why ask us to post questions if you won't take but 2 of them? What the fuck, Loic, come on, dude. Thanks. So we'll take one question then. There is one for Dennis.
Yes.
Have you been treated differently because you are a young entrepreneur, or is it seen as a positive?
A positive to be, I was going to say, can you like a positive to be young? I'm like 34. It's like old.
He looks young,
old dog,
but he's actually
right?
pretty old.
Yeah.
Well,
no, I need to learn from your look.
I think there's an there's an advantage to to eating your own dog food. Like, we didn't sit around at a conference room and come up with 10 ideas for companies we could start. It was like, this is something we're going to build. If it turns into a company, sweet. If it doesn't, at least we built it. And I think, as you were saying, like, passion is the thing that people gravitate to. And like, we've got a team of people that are just passionate about building this stuff. And I think that's what makes us attractive to partners and investors and to users. Like, I think even a lot of people in this room probably get excited in the same way that we're excited about building this stuff. Like, people haven't done it before, and
I think
it's great
It's a
positive to be.
It's a positive.
Yeah.
I'm very ageist about entrepreneurs we see now.
Yeah. If I came to you and asked for money, you'd say, forget it.
Of course.
Look at that hair. He's too old.
But at which point, like, is it, if you're like a 16-year-old protege, like, is it easy, or like, do you have to hit 21 to make it happen, or do you have to have one successful startup, or do you have to have worked at a real job before? Like, I don't know where to draw that line.
Isn't it true that even between the time you did a Dodgeball and the time you did Foursquare, that it became, the barrier to entry really plummeted with things like Amazon's EC2 and you can iterate now. There's tools where look how quickly you can iterate.
Yeah.
Isn't it easier and less expensive to at least get started now?
It's easier to get to scale, for sure. Like, Dodgeball was, 2 of us working for like a year and a half, plugging away at this stuff. And, the infrastructure was awful and all this other stuff. And, Foursquare has been able to grow quickly, and I think Twitter and some of these other services, because you benefit from those lower costs. I mean, just to scrap something together is relatively easy. Like, it's totally worth noting that, like, 2 kids out of NYU were both 26 or 27 at the time. Like, no one wanted to give us any money at all. Like, we weren't business students. We hadn't done startups before. Like, our idea was kind of crazy, and no one wanted to touch us. And that, that's one of the reasons we ended up at Google, because Google was like, man, what you guys are building is fantastic. We love this. And even with the Series B, like, we're telling a similar story, like, hey, it almost worked before. We think we can make it work again. And people are like, prove it. I want to see some numbers. I want to see some traction. And so it didn't really have anything to do with age. It didn't really have tons to do with experience. It's like, you know, a lot of it was just like a story in the numbers. Like, does the company make sense? Are people gravitating to it? Is it something that, you know, users and merchants are going to get excited about?